Great, we are live. We've got dingers going off and sounds and bells, and it's just wild and crazy over here. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Diane Rose Solomon, and I'm the founder of Animal Magic Films. That's me. Thank you for joining us for the 30th interview in the Science and Magic of the Human-Animal Bond interview series. We will be exploring many of the ways that animals help people and people help animals, because in my world, it's a both and conversation where we all benefit from this bond. I know I have benefited immensely from my relationship with my pets and from a surprise therapy dog visit in the hospital years ago. I also experienced great joy watching other people heal from their interactions with animals, and I'm also captivated by non-companion animals like wild animals, farm animals, and more. But now we get to hear from you, people who are making our relationships with our pets, our communities, and with our natural environment just a little bit better. So please welcome my guest today, Billie Groom. Hello, Billie.
Hey, Diane. How are you? So nice to be here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It's really all mine. Billie is the founder of UPWARD Dogology, and I'm very excited to learn more about this. But let me tell you a little bit about Billie, and then we will learn more about our dogology. So Billie Groom is an expert in canine cognitive behavioral therapy. Maybe you've heard of cognitive behavioral therapy before for humans, but she specializes in canine CBT. She began her journey over 3 decades ago on a mission to understand why dogs were being euthanized and surrendered for behavioral reasons, and to provide a solution. She worked and volunteered exclusively with dogs over the age of 6 months, and in particular, dogs from disadvantaged pasts and with unconventional puppyhoods. Her studies and work led her to the creation of UPWARD Dogology, a scientifically proven formula grounded in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. The success of this formula in addressing behaviors associated with anxiety, aggression, and one's common with adolescent and adopted dogs, led to an unintentional successful career as a behaviorist and a reputation as an industry disruptor. She is the author of an award-winning book, the host of her podcast, and is a contributing author to Cold Noses Magazine, the American Association of Pet Parents, and Rough Drafts Magazine, and Happy Homes. And there's even more too, but I want to talk to you. So let's get started.
I was going to say you could just do the whole show.
Yeah, no. We're going to stop there because I want to hear from you. So how did you get started with UPWARD Dogology?
It did start around 3 decades ago. It probably even more now. I keep saying 3 decades. So I was volunteering, taking dogs in and rescued dogs, and traveling in the States with my boyfriend at the time, and we took in dogs. And then when I went back up to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, I had a dog daycare and walking service. All of this was with dogs over the age of 6 months. And then I got involved with rescues there. And to move it along, I did notice that there was a lot of people that felt at a loss at that adolescent stage with dogs, that 16 to, just over the 6 month to about the 16 month. And a lot of dogs were being euthanized. Rescue organizations were not sure what to do with some of the dogs. They were having a hard time homing the older ones. And I just started to bring in a lot of the dogs. And, fast forward, I had taken in a couple hundred dogs and worked with them and did my own thing. I never studied dog training. I never studied what they were doing. But at some point, a couple decades into it, came out there was the whole positive reinforcement training, and then also the more dominance alpha style. And I hadn't really followed too much of either. Mm-hmm. So I looked into both of them and started to learn more about what I was doing and why it was working. And clients, lots and lots of clients. So I decided I really needed to dive into what I was doing. I talked to psychologists and veterinarians, and I have veterinarians for clients, and psychologists and child psychologists. And then I studied the different platforms and the different, the difference between conditioning methods, which are currently out there. So I'm sort of rushing through this a bit, but the idea is that I learned that what I was doing is grounded in cognitive behavioral therapy after it was established and approved, and after it had been implemented. I actually learned that that's why it is effective and why it works.
So let's go back a second, because
Sure.
even though I have a psychology degree,
Yeah.
it was a long time ago, another lifetime. And I would love to have a better understanding of what cognitive behavioral therapy is as it's defined for humans, if that's worth delving into, or if it's just easier to explain how it relates to the dog. You can go straight to the dog, but I just want to have some reference point of what cognitive behavioral therapy is.
Yeah, I understand that. I think talking about it as a whole with people, a lot of my clients will say, "Oh, I'm doing this with my son or with myself or my therapist, or to lose weight." I mean, a lot of people are familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy to a certain extent. So what it does is it assumes that there's already thought patterns in your mind. You already have a reason why you're doing a behavior, whether that's an emotional reason or a learned experience. And it changes that perception. So it doesn't focus on the behavior, it focuses on the reason for the behavior. And it changes perception to change behavior. Excuse me, sorry, I had a little frog in my throat there. So I love it because it's really flexible and adaptable to different people. And it does have a 10-step formula, arguably could be 5. It depends on, but they all follow the same formula as to what you're doing and how you work through it. So I've just adapted that to dogs. I've taken the same formula and adapted it to dogs. You're actually reaching the cognitive side of the brain. You're reaching that side of the brain that's making those decisions, and you're providing skill sets for them to change that decision on their own.
Okay. And clearly the dogs don't know that this is happening. It's just whatever, like, so, okay. So let me delve into this a little bit deeper. And actually, before we do that, can you tell me what Upward Dogology stands for? And then I want to get back to this CBT question.
It's an acronym for Urban People with Adopted and Rescued Dogs, which is exactly who my clients are and who I really care about and want. The big goal is for people to feel like they can bring in a dog into their life. They can bring in a rescued dog. They can bring in a dog with a disadvantaged past, and they can integrate that dog into their life. Everything they do, whether they do things with their children or go camping or take their dog to work. And it's really important that people feel that they can do that and that they can bond with their dog. And that's what Upward Dogology does. It allows people to be able to do that in whatever capacity their own life and their relationship with their dog is.
Okay, so now bringing this back to, so I have this new rescue dog, or dog with a troubled past, and nothing I'm doing is working. Let's use me as an example. Nothing I'm doing is working, or I haven't even tried anything else, but I've heard of you and I want to, work with you because I think that this could be a cool thing to do. What does it look like for me as the pet parent? Like, what am I doing? Because I know that even with traditional dog training, you're really training the human being, or at least I should say, I know that for that traditional dog training, you're training the human being to know how to work with the dog. Is that similar here? Like, what does it look like? From the first day that we engage, what am I learning to do with my dog?
It's a good question. So to backtrack a little bit on some things you were saying there, traditional methods are grounded in conditioning methodology. So I usually recommend people to try the standard conditioning techniques first. Having said that, 98% of the people that contact me, I have a couple hundred clients a year for decades, so they have already hired reputable, certified conditioning trainers, and whatever level they do. They all do things differently. Some are clicker and some are treats. And the idea is that the platform of conditioning methods is to use reinforcements to teach, to encourage wanted behavior, to discourage unwanted behavior on whatever level or way that they choose to do that. So the idea with conditioning methods is that because it's designed to to teach right from wrong, it works best with puppies. They have a
Mhm.
clean slate. They want to learn. You're not necessarily changing preconceived thought patterns. You're instilling thought patterns with
Got it.
conditioning methods. That's with people too. That's not just
Correct.
with dogs. It's with anything, right? So what's happened is, when you apply it to dogs, you're just taking those same concepts and those platforms and you're taking it over to dogs. I'm doing the same with cognitive behavioral therapy, which assumes a preconceived thought pattern. So the
Okay.
first thing I would ask is your dog has to be over the age of 6 months, because commonly under 6 months, they do have cognitive skills. And when I say that, I'm talking about memory and emotions and feel, and they, they can look at something and correlate it. But commonly what happens with puppies when they're using their cognitive skills is good thing happen. They learn, oh, people are good, dogs are
Mhm.
fun, it works in our favor. And when they get to adolescence, sometimes those cognitive skills develop in a way that unless we mature with them and we start harnessing those cognitive skills to a greater degree, they can work not in our favor. So dogs know what you're trying to tell them and they don't do it, or they make a choice that may not be the choice that we like, or maybe they know it's wrong to grab the sock, but they'll grab the sock and run around the house anyway. And you just don't have
It's never happened in our house. It's never
good,
happened in our house.
good. You just don't have that calm manageability. They know
Yeah.
what come when called is, but they just choose not to do it. Or
Mhm.
you get in a rescued dog that's 2 years old, 1 year old, and they've already learned that when they bark at people, it keeps them at bay. Or they've learned that when their brain starts to go to a scary place, they just pee.
Mhm.
It's different than a puppy, right? You're dealing with a different reason why a behavior is
Right.
occurring. So it's not
Right.
like one method is better than the other.
I understand.
They're just they feed off of different platforms. They have different guidelines, principles. So you really need to have the idea of both depending on.
No, this makes total sense, and I'm so glad I'm asking you these questions because I thought it was, you know, either or from the beginning, but I really like that, if you have a puppy, let's try the traditional
Oh,
conditioning methodology,
oh yeah.
right? I really like that.
A
And
lot of dogs love the traditional. Even if you get an adopted dog, it doesn't
yeah,
take long. You can try the standard stuff. You're going to know within hours or days whether
right.
it's working. And if not,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It's not your fault. You just need to find the method that works with the dog
Yeah.
instead of pushing that method on the dog.
And then there's, of course, a big distinction between being a dog trainer and a behaviorist. So help me understand that a little bit because I don't even know if you consider yourself a traditional behaviorist either. And, so where on this continuum, explain to me because we've worked with behaviorists who saved our lives, really, because our
Good.
dogs were fighting. And she walked in and she was so keen. She walked in within 30 seconds. She could see exactly with their body language what was going on. Gave us some tools, and within 3 days it was done. It was
Wow,
brilliant. But
that's awesome.
that wasn't a dog trainer. They'd already been through the sit, stay down stuff. This was different. This was how they were engaging with one another, and I didn't have the skills to see what they were doing. But as soon as she pointed it out, I was like, okay, I get it. Now I know what to do to stop. But then you're coming at it from a whole new place. Share with me a little bit about
It
what
would be more like what your behaviorist did.
okay.
I mean, that question gets a little technical in the dog world because, some people are of the school that the behaviorist has to have certain credentials and this kind of thing. But I think for the what you're talking about right here, right now, is exactly what you just said, where a trainer has preset ideas what they're going to. So we're going to socialize, we're going to teach
Right.
these, and might be a 6-week program, and that program is pre-established. You can go online and see what you're going to learn in each class, and it's great. It,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, it works. It's bonding. They're good. What I do and what your behaviorist did, I'm not caught up in trainer or behaviorist. It's just, I
Mm-hmm.
only use cognitive behavioral
I
therapy. So
understand.
it's more what she did, where I would work one-on-one with people it's specific to their needs. And we start out by gaining the platform skills and work specifically with, this is an interesting part. They always call me or hire me because they have a specific problem, maybe more than one problem.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start working together, they see that change. They see the platform skills that we've developed. They start incorporating that in, nothing to do with what they hired me for. We're not there.
Interesting.
But just start with these platform skills. And they start to see changes. And it was interesting that you said 3 to 4 days, I think you said. Anyway,
Yeah.
around that time, what happens is you start to see changes. Now, sometimes those changes fix the problem without having to go into a little bit applying them into cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't know exactly what she did, but that's about the right time where just your basic, you don't even have to know cognitive behavioral therapy for dogs to really, so you get those basic skills. You do have to reach the cognitive side of the brain, which a lot of people do without even knowing that they're doing it. Canine enrichment games, even people who do agility, scent detection, service dogs, you're reaching the cognitive side of the brain. Sometimes that unto itself can just completely change the dynamics. If not, we have those platform skills and we take them to funnel down more specifically to the issues.
Okay. I'm going to, since I'm such a newbie to all of this, can you explain what you mean by platform skills? So you come in and what is, like, you said there's like a list of like 10 skills. It could be 5. Is that what these platform skills are?
No, sorry. The 10 are the principles.
Principles.
There's
Okay.
principles that you follow. So when I'm working with a client, I'm always going back to these principles of cognitive behavioral therapy, not upward dogology, just what they are.
Got it.
And when you talk to a psychologist, some would use the 5 platform and some use the 10, but that's sort of irrelevant for this. So my brain is always going back, so I know what questions to ask. They provide feedback. So I'm a lot of two-way communication with my client, because when they start doing exercises, which are individual to their own dog, how we discovered those or established those exercises are the questions that I ask. They give the feedback. We talk about it. And by the time they leave the first session, which is Zoom, they have exercises to apply. What I need is the feedback from that, because if the dog does this, do this. If the dog does this, do this. I know that, but they're not learning how to apply cognitive behavioral therapy to every dog. They're only learning what they need to know for their own dog in that situation. Then when they provide me with feedback, and that's often through videos as well, I'll be, okay, this is where we're going. So if you think of it a little bit like a nutritionist that would start out giving some basic caloric information or a food guide, maybe for a week, and a little bit of an exercise guide, like if it's an overall health advisor, they're going to take that information, what happened after a week? Did you sleep better? Did your hair change, or your nail? There could be, it might not even be specifically addressing what that person's need to lose 50 pounds, but there's changes that occur, and those changes determine the next step. So unlike training, getting back to the 6-week program, that training program doesn't change. Whereas a behaviorist, or the way I work with dogs, would adapt the changes, and we know how to do that based on the feedback that we get. We're then going to recommend this, and we're going to suggest
so
this.
It's very personalized. It's almost like a nutritionist, where it's very personalized to this person or this dog's current needs.
It is very personalized. It also does follow the guidelines of CBT. And I've just learned how to do that with a dog. So I've learned what a dog's, so that's exactly what I've learned. I've learned how to reach the cognitive side of the brain, develop those exercises with my client, and then, or if I'm with the dog, and then based on the feedback, again, follow that. It's an actual formula. It's not sort of this airy type.
Yeah. So my next question, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. So my next question is something that you just mentioned, that you it's on the first meeting is on Zoom. So you're not you're not you don't have to only work with local people. You're able to work on Zoom
Yeah.
with clients.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I
Oh,
have clients all over the world.
fantastic. Oh, this
Oh,
will
yeah,
make me
all
very
over the
happy.
world. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
it's
Because
great.
you're in
It's
Canada and like there's a lot of people that are going to see this and say, wait, we want to work with Billie, but this is really important to
yeah, no,
know.
I
Yeah.
love working with my clients everywhere. It's amazing because it's also really creative.
Yeah.
So, depending on what weather they have or what their um, area looks like, their neighborhood or their friends, family, we have so many options as to your teaching opportunities, how you apply it, how you
Yeah.
integrate
Yeah.
it, and it's specific to them, and it's so great. CBT on its own is creative. That's the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing about it is it's flexible, it's adaptable, not just the way I work with dogs and my clients, but unto itself. There's nothing aversive about it, nothing harmful. It's all getting the dog's brain. And then once we do that, oh, it just flies. And my clients, they're you can just see it go off. They're,
Like
oh,
the
I
light bulb.
feel
Yeah.
different with my dog. It's yes, and they have a different bond with them and they have a different way of communicating with them and they see these changes occur. And then all of a sudden, what they actually hired me for is it just falls into place.
It's amazing.
Sometimes not. And we have to keep, working with it.
And is your work mostly intuitive, or is this a program that other people could do like you do, or have you trained anybody else to do this work alongside of you?
Yeah, no, it's an actual formula. It is. And again, when I'm working with my clients, I'm not that boring. I don't send them through a
Right.
formula. I adhere to the formula.
Yeah.
But when I'm talking to them, we're working together like regular people. But yes, teaching it would be a full course where they would learn the step procedures is what to do. There is experience, of course, with anything, the more experience
Of
you have,
course.
but it's not intuitive. No,
Right.
it is a structured formula that people could learn and follow.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I just want to switch gears for a second because you had a really profound experience a couple of years ago that I learned about that I was able to watch on another interview that you did. And um, it's sort of a background of what it seems like what really inspired all of this that kind of just clicked for you a couple of years ago. Do you want to share that story right now?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't share that story often. In fact, only once before, but I'd love to. It was just before COVID, early 2020, and I got a phone call in the day, which is pretty common. I just thought it was going to be a client or something, and it was a man, very polite man, who asked if my original name was Leslie, which it was, and if I was from the Port Credit area around Mississauga, which I was. And he said that he had seen me on LinkedIn. And that was interesting because I'd only recently become active on LinkedIn. So it made sense that he found me there. And he began to just say that he knew me when I was a child. He's 10 years older than I am. And he knew me when I was a child. He knew people I knew and he name dropped them. And they're, quite lovely people, wonderful people. And I said, sure. He just asked me if he could tell me a story about my childhood. I did know at that point what happened during my childhood, but I didn't know his specific story. And he lived fairly close to me with his family. I was 7, he was 17, and his family dog ran off, which was rare. It was a family pet and they were responsible, but he took himself for a walk. And I guess my parents, who were quite active in the community and quite well known, they found that they got the dog and brought his dog into our home. Rumor got around, no internet, so it all goes on that we had his dog. So he came over and he really was drawn to my parents. He really was quite taken with them. So we stayed for a while. I guess he saw me, and then he left. And the night after, following that, my parents were killed by a drunk driver, and this really affected him. He just felt it just always really affected him. And then shortly after that, or a certain amount of time after that, I'm not sure how long, he was playing football with his buddies in the schoolyard, and I walked through, and he did not come up and say hello to me. He didn't talk to me, and he felt uncomfortable. He didn't know what to say. He knew that people were, struggling with, what do we do with the daughter of these wonderful people? And he just always wanted to tell me that story because he felt bad that he didn't know how to. So how it set with me is it really explained for me. Somehow I took that over to dogs, and I just feel that we can do this. We can bring dogs into our home. And even if we don't totally understand them or understand how they feel, we can learn them. We can learn that from them. It's not about always teaching them and assuming that they don't have a past and they don't have a history. They do. And maybe everything they're doing isn't great because of that history, but we can bring them into our lives, and we can talk to them and communicate with them and learn from them. And that's what I figured out how to do with dogs, with hundreds of dogs over 6 months. And it was just really important to me because I think people really want to help. As with me as a child, people wanted me to do well. They wanted to help me, but they didn't know how.
It's amazing. And it is amazing how you naturally gravitated towards this work over time. And then the story happened 2 years ago. And it was like, oh, that's really why I got into this.
It seemed like everything happened backwards. My whole journey was backwards, really, because I learned about what I did. I never intended to be a dog trainer, and I never studied dog training. And then I learned why what I was doing was working. And then I learned why I did it.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. At 56 years old, it's an interesting all coming together.
That happened to me that way too. I didn't realize how important animals were into my life until I, got hit over the head with a pan a few times. And I was like, whoa, this is my whole life. This has been happening. And I just wasn't paying attention, but then I was paying attention,
It's interesting how that happens. And it's enlightening and refreshing and motivating.
Yeah. So, couple more things before we finish up, because I find this so fascinating, and I could, I just could keep talking. But what else do you want people to know about your work? Is there anything that I missed that you think is really important, or do you have a favorite story that you want to share? You can do both if you'd like, or if there's one or the other, go for it.
Well, there's a few things I did want to say about it, and that's right now in the dog world, in the dog education world, it's really coming around to mindfulness for dogs and options and understanding who they are and their emotional intelligence and creating that bond. I could go on and on, not addressing the behavior itself, but the reason for the behavior. And this is wonderful. I'm so happy about this. It's just that real, the dog education world is still stuck in conditioning methods, and they're never going to get there if the mindset is there, but they don't have the actual formula to do it. So they're almost there, and I'm really glad that it's coming around that way. So I really hope more people are. I feel like a lot of people are really interested in what I do. I get contacted all the time, and I work with people, and a lot of trainers are interested, and they're going in that direction, and they can see it. But I think the real thing for me is it's not just about fixing people's individual problems with their dog. It is about that you need Canine CBT in order to eliminate negative methods and aversive methods. People understand that they should be doing positive, but when it doesn't work or it's falling short, they go to that dark side, and they don't have to. It's a perceived need, because some of those, unfortunately, they do work well. That's my little Mexican street dog. They do work. They are effective in the short run, but they have a lot of negative repercussions. So if we had Canine CBT, they wouldn't have to go there, as well as behavioral euthanasia. If we can address those behaviors and surrender, and as well as increase adoptions because of having both conditioning methods and canine CBT, it really is about the larger benefits that it has for dogs, not just about fixing these individual problems with a formula. It's about everybody knowing that formula so that it can solve a lot of those big problems.
So important. And I know you had a story that you wanted to share.
Oh, that was Boo Boo. Right. Yeah, Boo Boo was, oh my gosh, I'm going back to the early 90s when I was in Toronto, and the Humane Society was having a real problem with a dog and homing that they didn't want to euthanize. And so I offered, and there became the Boo Boo fan club, before internet, but the local and within the Humane Society. And then Boo Boo got into a really good home. He was a pit bull cross, which of course, there's a lot that get euthanized.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just probably one of my ones that just, yay. And the Humane Society awarded me for that and for my work with dogs. And I think it was one of the ones, there were lots of dogs back then that just kept me going and kept me motivated, and knowing that what I was doing was working and was helping. And Boo Boo was one of them. Yeah.
Amazing. So where can people find you to learn more about you and Upward Dogology?
So the website's upwarddogology.com. LinkedIn, I'm actually Billie Groom, my name.
Okay.
Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is Upward Dogology. I appreciate everyone's support and interest.
No, it's really amazing. And one of my trainer friends saw that this was coming, and she might be watching right now too, because she was very curious about this as well. And I have a feeling you will have more interest. And because I love that that both and conversation, you can be a trainer and utilize this methodology too. You don't have to scrap everything that you've learned.
It doesn't have to be an either or.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah, it doesn't at all. Yeah. You just want to make sure that the methods you're using are effective and non-aversive. And if they are,
that's great.
That's really what everybody wants in the end, right?
Absolutely.
We all want to know that we're helping. And
what's the name of your book? I didn't ask that before.
Oh, yeah. The second edition just came out. It's called The Art of Urban People with Adopted and Rescued Dogs Methodology, which is a very long name. It's on my website, but it's all about rescued dogs and the rescued dog world, and the difference between puppies and dogs, and how we need to differentiate that more because their brains work differently and they think and learn. So it's a lot about that.
That's great. Well, people can find it on your website. So that's the most important thing. So this has been so amazing. I'm so glad we got to speak more, and I got to have a better understanding of what you do. And I'm just knowing that you've been doing this for decades and working with upwards of a couple hundred dogs every year. That's making a huge difference. So thank you, Billie, for doing your part.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to spread awareness on it. It's really important, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. And I'm excited to see where this goes, because I feel like it's just gaining some real steam and momentum right now. So that's despite having been around for a few decades. So thank you again. So before we go officially, a few quick announcements. Please check out animalmagicfilms.com, where you can join our community and learn about new film releases and other things that we share. Oops, that was the wrong thing. There we go. If you're not yet a member of the Facebook group, The Science and Magic of the Human-Animal Bond, this is what this is. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Animal Magic Films. And feel free to email me with questions, Diane@animalmagicfilms.com, or whatever. Just stay in touch. But let's go back to you, because this is really important that people know where to find you at UpwardDogology.com. And thank you again, Billie, for joining me today and for sharing something so unique that can help pets and pet parents. And
thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you to everyone for spending time with us today. And we will be back another time. I don't know when, maybe next month. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but we will be back. So take care, everybody. Thanks again, Billie.
Thank you.